Okay.
Yay.
All right. Hi, everyone. We just had a bit of a Mercury
We
retrograde.
just did a half hour and no, I'm just kidding.
Yeah,
10 minutes.
without Mercury retrograde, but it happened. Thought we were recording, we weren't. So we're back to discuss politics, world affairs. We were just talking about Eileen Cannon and the news that she's delaying the trial indefinitely. And we both agree, for our own reasons, that it's unlikely to change in any way before the election. So even though that's probably the most glaring open and shut case, I mean, the evidence is overwhelming that he's done something really bad.
Right.
But, she's pretty clearly in the tank, helping him out. Much more so, I think, than even the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court next to her looks subtle because the Supreme Court is doing this thing where you can sort of say, yeah, okay, they should clarify what's private and what's public and all that stuff. It's still, I think, really irresponsible, but hers is just a direct, I'm not going to deal with this until who knows when, so that he doesn't have to go to court, right?
But by next year, things are going to start happening.
Oh, no, yeah, no, for sure.
Because I feel, Jack Smith is on tour. He knows what's going on. But the minute Trump doesn't win, these people are in for a big surprise.
That's correct.
Surprise.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly it. That a lot of these things, they work, provided you've got, the terrain for a while, and yeah, it's like that. It's just a question of getting around the turn of the election. Yeah, for sure.
I have a psychic hit. This has got nothing to do with astrology, but I was feeling Merrick Garland will not pick up after the new administration starts.
He will not return for another term.
Not that he's being fired, that he just says he's done this and he started it already.
Yeah, that feels about right. Yeah, for a lot of reasons, it may even be better for Biden to switch him, to put someone else in there. Yeah.
So that definitely, but you said something in June. There's something in June.
Well, yeah. Okay. So the Eileen Cannon if she was going to get in trouble, then something would have shown up sometime in April, because there's a hit there. Not much happened, right? So that tells me that it's unlikely. However, there is still enough there that at the end of June, she and a lot of other people, Trump included, there's a planetary station that is quite intense. Like, for instance, last year's June Saturn station was when that submersible went under and all those people died, because it's the sign of the ocean, Pisces and all that. But it's a very intense moment. If it catches planets, it feels rough. And, Eileen Cannon is basically doing something that's, by all accounts, not illegal, but quite incorrect. So she might run into some problems there. The only thing would be, though, that if, for instance, I saw that Jack Smith possibly, because that's around July when he gets a really good period.
Oh, so, he gets a good period in July?
Yeah, he gets a good period. So it's possible that it could correlate to that, but Jack Smith has more than one case, so it might be the other case,
Might be, for example, January 6th, yeah.
Yeah, because if you look at the timing of what's happening, Trump is in the midst of this thing with Stormy Daniels and, McDougal and Cohen and all that. That's looking like, at most, it should be over by the beginning of June, because prosecution is saying 2 more weeks. How much is the defense going to do? Even with some delays, it's not the end of June, it's the beginning of June. So then what's happening at the end of June? Because there's something else there that's really problematic, right? So for example, what I would hope for is that, since it's looking like the Supreme Court probably will stall until the end of their term, which is the later I think in June, but if you then send it back to Chutkan and she does some kind of review of the case by calling in witnesses, that's not as good as a trial, but it's really bad.
It's just as good.
Well, it's they call in Pence, they call, like, the whole thing with Trump is he doesn't want to have these facts out, because he knows that they convict him. I mean, the amazing thing about Trump is he's such a criminal. He knows he's a criminal somewhere in his mind, then he goes out of the court and he says the total opposite of what happened. I know, but that gets out, right? And when it gets out, it never helps you, basically, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so
Lynn Street wants to know, what's the vibe starting with the month of September 2024? Will the energy be changing?
in September,
Yeah, 2024.
I think it's more that in October, there is a station in October that's quite important. That's the one that some astrologers think points to Trump's really good place in the planet, when in reality it's the opposite, because that station makes an opposition at that time, so it doesn't help him. But yeah, September, October, thing about that is that it's a little dangerous because there's more than one station. Remember last October was the Gaza, that thing in Israel, that was the middle of October. Those are planetary stations. The energy ramps up. It's like when we had January 6th back in 2021, there were stations there, and then that amps up the energy, and then more things can happen. But we know that's going to be the case anyway. We're getting near an election, all kinds of stuff comes out, disputes, arguments. So if you're expecting the energy to be calm, then no, it's not going to be calm. Just assume that, there'll be lots of outrage flying around.
A lot of stuff going on.
Yeah, not to mention that the other thing now that I just thought of too is that Jupiter station connects to the US chart in a place that links it to all the disinformation and all the garbage that we're dealing with, because this is nothing other than that. It's like one side is trying to play by the rules, more or less tell it like it is, and the other side just makes things up, like starting.
Well, it's like his family saying if Trump loses again, there's going to be trouble. Well, they're talking like they know all their people, like millions of people are going to. They're not there. They're already not there at this trial. There's what, 2-3 people showing up?
No,
He
no.
begged for people to come. He really begged for people to come and fight, and they wouldn't do it. That January 6th was pretty much the last fight he's going to see. There might have terrorists, chicken shit type people coming in, doing stuff that's behind closed doors, but no. I see the FBI and CIA really kind of stopping anything that's going to happen.
Yeah, by the way, this is why the rule of law works. The main reason you don't see these people show up there is because they saw their comrades charged, right? And don't forget that a lot of those Proud Boys got many years in jail for sedition. So these are not light crimes. So people know, especially now, they know Trump is not pulling the levers, right? It's much tougher when there's an actual administration with actual people following the rule of law.
But he had the chance to do a blanket pardon before he left as president, and he didn't do it.
For himself?
For these insurrections.
Oh, no, yeah, I know. Yeah, of course. Yeah, but see, the problem with pardoning is that if you pardon, you admit that there was a crime. So, and besides, Trump just says things. Trump, the best way to understand Trump, if you want to know the con man sleazebag that he is, it's what he does to, now, Stormy Daniels, of course, we know what she was doing for a living. She was trying to improve her lot in life. So her thing was, well, if I hang out with him, maybe he'll put me on The Apprentice, and he let her off.
He dangled that over her.
I'm going to show you. But he had no intention of doing that because he didn't want someone to say, oh, look at this, he's putting a porn star there. So really what he wanted to do is get in her pants, basically.
A porn star that looks like his daughter.
Well, that too. That's the other thing, that keeps coming out repeatedly. And
like that, I said, people were talking on Twitter and threads. And I said, I don't get why they're treating her so horrible about wanting to make money and selling merchandise when Orange Crush is over there doing the same thing.
Yeah, that's totally true. Yeah, it's completely true. And
I think what helped her, I don't think they even had to put her on. I think they had enough without putting her on. But even though they put her on, I think that she ended up being a pretty decent witness considering.
Yeah. And she's another person that her pressure in the astrology is the same as Kristi Noem. Similar planets getting pressure. It's just that she's more sensible. She's more a tune. She said a few things she shouldn't have said, you know, she was
Yeah.
trying to make them laugh and stuff like that. But overall, she's pretty sensible. I'm quite sure she's got enough, more than enough brain power to know, you know, that killing a dog and talking about it is not a good idea, you know. So there are just some people that you wonder, why did you go into politics when you're so obviously not suited for this?
Yeah.
'Cause you're so bad at it, you know.
Oh,
Anyway,
even for Steve Bannon to say that was a bad move.
of course, yeah, no question. I mean, no question.
So Christy, no, is it as bad as it looks?
It's bad, yeah. It's bad in that it's the classic. When you see a lot of mutable planets and you see Saturn roaming around, be careful. Don't do things that are lies, or like, in other words, you're going beyond boundaries. Saturn will always push you back. And in particular, Saturn's favorite trick is to call you on what you've been doing that doesn't match the reality, right? But I mean, in her case, she walked right into it, because all of this, you know, I mean, you have to be incredulous. She's being asked by people, okay, so like you read the audiobook and you were reading into the mic that you were speaking with Kim Jong-un. Now you're saying that didn't happen. And then she says, well, I've talked to a lot of world leaders. She won't say that it didn't happen. It's crazy. You know, it's amazing to me. And you know what's interesting on that, probably Trump would forgive it, but even though maybe she thought that because Trump doesn't like dogs, that killing a dog would be a good idea. I'm bragging about it.
Yeah.
But I think Trump is smart enough politically to know
Oh, no, he knows she's
that's
off
not a
the
good,
list.
no,
Yeah.
there's no way. No.
But I think he likes her. He
Oh,
just
sure.
won't use her.
Sure. Yeah. But it's
But she probably, and Amazon has cut her, or I don't know who was doing a book tour, and Amazon won't let people make truthful remarks because her remarks were so bad.
oh no, of course, of course. And her book is not doing that well either. Because sometimes a bad book or a controversial book will rise to the top, but hers was, I think, falling out of the top 100, things like that. So, you know,
Right.
it's taken a real hit. But, you know, for pretty obvious reasons, we've had comedians now multiple nights making jokes, you know, about what she did, because it's so extreme, and she keeps adding more onto it. Her next thing was, well, even Biden's dog maybe should be shot because he's been biting people, and you know, that kind of thing. I mean,
Oh, she insists that he should be shot.
well, she kind of implied it. I don't think she actually said shoot the dog, but you know, it's just not. You can't do that in
They
politics.
showed a bus load of dogs in a bus. They were all sitting on the seats, and they said, heading out of South Dakota.
I know. It's oh, another one whose chart is stressed, and it's pretty obvious because we're seeing it as MTG, what she just did. You know, classic miscalculation. Any
I wanted
astrologer
to
would have said
ask
to her,
you about-
this is probably not going to work. Don't do this. It's going to not just not work, it's going to work against you. It'll become a problem. But the problem we're having now, the way the politics is, you've got all these people in really red districts because they gerrymander the thing so that there are too many Republicans, right? So she knows that she's going to get reelected. And one of the analysis I heard is that they don't even care about being in power. All they want to do is complain about, you know, the other side, say that they're bad, and if they can raise money, it's good enough, right? And so if the voters aren't smart enough to realize that this way you lose elections overall, right? Because you elect her, she's not helpful to the Republican
No.
Party. She's a really painful person with stupid ideas. I mean, when even Trump, you know, basically is backing, you know, the speaker, which, by the way,
Yeah.
good call again. I keep telling people that you made that great call on
Yeah, but
Well,
did you see he's talking trash now about stuff they want to do with the United States? That's horrible. But he's just a one-ticket show. He's not
oh
gonna-
yeah, he'll always you know, I mean, he was part of the insurrection, so don't expect any miracles from him. But
Yeah.
I thought that I didn't expect at all. This was not what I expected, that he would say, I looked at the intelligence, we need to fund Ukraine, which was what really upset MTG. But she got 10 to support her out of 300, and it was a total blowout, right? So she's on the wrong side of it.
So but she looks like she'll still win.
Yeah, I think she'll win. It's Bobert that looks, you know.
Oh, Boebert's gone. How
Yeah.
about Rick Scott? Does he look like he'll finally be taken out?
Rick Scott it's not a good chart. It's a complicated chart.
Because
for
he only
sure.
wins like by 1 or 2.
Well, he is at risk, and I would be beyond amazed if Trump chose him. That doesn't feel right to me. Very
Oh,
unlikely.
no, he's not gonna choose him, but he's got a lot of money, so. So he'll let him hang out with him. He's down at the trial now, trying to act like king for a day. Are you talking about Rick Scott or the other Scott?
No, Tim Scott. I meant Tim
Tim
Scott.
Scott, yeah.
Okay, Rick
How
Scott, I
about
haven't
Rick
looked at
Scott?
him. I haven't looked in a while, so I'll reserve
Okay,
judgment
look
on
later,
him.
yeah.
Yeah.
Now, what about RFK and the worm brain?
Well, RFK, I've always thought that RFK would kind of peak around now and then do less well going forward from here, from this
Okay.
point, like from about June.
Okay, we're not in
Yeah.
June yet.
Well, yeah, we're like
Yeah, I
so
mean,
then-
people throw a fit, they think Biden's too old. So a worm in the brain is like, yeah, no.
yeah, I don't know. I mean,
People are saying that the worm starved.
I guess, yeah,
The
or you
worm
know,
starved in his brain because there's nothing there.
I don't even know. Sometimes I wonder, like, how did that even get out? If it turns
I
out
think
that,
he had to release his medical records.
oh, okay, well, there you go.
A lot of these people, candidates, have to release it.
Mm.
I actually see him bowing out. I see him saying he's done. I think his numbers are going to drop so significantly. He's like, I'm out.
Well, that's even better. Yeah, that would be.
But you know, and the other thing is he was a heroin addict. The heroin could have killed the worm. Poor wormy.
The heroin killed the worm, or I wonder if the heroin can do that. Probably not. I mean, because they know.
But
when
he said, yeah, he said all of a sudden he wasn't able to remember things, his memory, they thought he had a severe dementia. You know, you got to feel sorry for the guy. I'm sure part of the reasons he's such a wackadoodle is because of these issues.
It's very possible. It's very possible. But the thing is, when you dig into his history, he's got a lot of the traits of narcissism and, you know, male domination and all of that. And he has, his head is way too big, you know, for his comprehension type thing. His ego is too big, and he'll do Trumpy things like throw information out there without evidence. He'll just say, this is what this is, this is what this is.
Even fix, yeah.
And it sounds sort of okay, but it's not really true. And that kind of thing is really bad for democracy. You know, you need to be more precise. Politicians will always exaggerate a certain amount, but you got to stay in a range. Otherwise, the whole thing, you know, goes into the waste paper basket. It's not good, you know.
Right.
So, yeah.
Now, here's a good one, Fani Willis. She's got a big voting. She's coming up for re-election May 21st.
Yeah, I had thought, you know, it surprised me how difficult it became for her. But the problem with hers is I don't have a birth time. But even so, I would think her odds are quite good. What do you feel?
Well, I know people in Georgia don't like them picking on a Black woman.
For one, so that would help her. Yeah.
So these white men picking on her will turn off a lot of voters. Let me look if she'll win May 21st. Because you don't prophesize like that. You prophesize by the
When is it? When is it that she goes for?
May 21st.
May 21st is what? Her re-election or not?
Yes, the re-election.
May 21st.
Someone wrote me and said that, so. Fani Willis has a primary to win, so it's a primary.
Yeah, but the primary she'll
Win
probably win.
re-election on May 21st. Will
Yeah,
she
but
win her primary?
When is the election though? Because the primary, that's not going to mean much. You probably will win that easily.
Okay, let's see. Fani Willis.
I would say that if it's in November, she's going to win.
I think it's in November.
Well, then she's going to win. Yeah.
She's not going to win the primary, okay?
She's not, or she is.
She will win the primary.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and I'm just looking at her chart, and she's also facing some trouble from the you know, from the legislature. They want to stop her and all that, but for her it improves starting in June. That cycle from June to the following.
Okay,
June.
so the end of May, she could win, and that's good news. And then she has to hustle to win for November.
Yeah, but November, I would say yes, for sure. Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
but I had the Six of Wands, which is
Oh, no, Six of Wands, that's, if you get the Six of Wands, you're in business.
your business. Okay, so have you looked at anything else for us?
Um,
Because somebody asked, will we see Christy Nome resign? I don't see her resigning. I see her hanging in.
no, it's just more that, it's more that she's in a difficult period and it'll continue, you know, and that's the, oh, one thing that I just popped into my mind is, I looked at, Matt Gaetz, because he's kind of in the background. His, there's a pressure point coming up in the middle of next year, not this year. It's quite a while before it gets to him, you know, in a meaningful way. I know people want him to be brought to account and all that, but I
Who is
think
this again?
Matt Gaetz, you know,
Oh,
the
I know.
MTG's
So he's
friend.
gonna win again?
Probably, yeah. Good guess that he's gonna win again, yeah. Yeah.
How
I mean,
about Kim Jong-un? Have you taken a look at him lately?
Kim Jong-un, no, I haven't in a while. The thing with him is that he had his most, his big power play was back when he, you know, he was being so mischievous that Trump had to threaten him. And so he was doing that big power play. But after that, he's just doing the same thing he always does. You know, I don't think, if you're thinking he's going to start a war or anything, I don't think that's true.
Have you looked at Putin lately?
Well,
I just
Putin,
feel
yeah,
like
okay,
it's
so
terrible. You should see everything they're bombing in Russia right now.
that it's not working.
It's working. They're bombing the hell out of Russia right now.
Right. Well, the thing about Putin is that, and this is the way things can move too slow, you know, for people's liking. But the changes next year and the year after, right, are very unfavorable for him because that there's a big conjunction coming up that signals big change in Russia. And I don't see how he pulls this off because he doesn't have the resources, you know, to
Right.
do anything. And every time he meant, you know, whenever things are getting really dicey, then you hear one of the people, whether it's through him or whatever, they start talking nuclear weapons.
They always do that.
I know, but that is a silly talk, you know, nuclear weapons. You can't, if you use nuclear weapons, it's mutually assured destruction. You'll get into a lot of trouble. So it just feels to me like he doesn't get what he wants. And then as that cycle kicks in, some next year and some the year after, you know, he's moved out or something
No,
happens
he's
to him.
really, the only thing he has left on his plate is that Trump could win as president.
Well, that's what he wants. Yeah, right, right. But that's a big gamble, you know.
So, and I know they're gonna take that money, the billions of dollars they have from Russia to help rebuild the Ukraine. That really pissed him off.
Yeah, and there's also the fact that you know, with all these data points, one is that the situation improves for Zelensky starting in June, right? That year from June to June. So already I'm sure he's, you know, he would have seen it as good news when they got the money a while back, but now the conditions get better, right? Rather
Right.
than worse. Yeah. But the thing is, that same cycle, though, you see, this is where it complicates. That same cycle, it partly assists Putin as well. So Putin's problems are more likely to get really serious in the middle of next year, right? That's
Okay.
really what the, you know, the time span. This is where you'd hope it'd be faster, but it's unlikely, you know. Just takes
And by the way, Biden is not sending any missiles to Netanyahu. He's all upset.
Yeah, well, Netanyahu, you know, Netanyahu, the whole thing with him is you see the right wing versus a more moderate government. They do everything, you know, take an axe to problems that need more subtlety. And so Netanyahu's big problem is the end of the year this year. The end of the year is super dicey, you know, around surviving that.
He's saying we don't need the United States. No, go ahead. Be on your way then.
Yeah, it's not a
We've
not
been
a good
giving
play.
them money and weapons for years. It needs to stop.
Yeah, it's overkill. I mean, the thing is that they don't want Hamas to have any influence anymore, which is probably a good objective, but the way
Good
he's doing
objective,
it,
but you don't starve and kill millions of people.
yeah, exactly, yeah. So,
Did you take a look-see at Zelensky lately?
yeah, Zelensky, I just said that Zelensky's improves, it improves starting in June, it just keeps building, and
And you said, who it starts going bad the end of this year?
Netanyahu.
Netanyahu. I'm sorry, I
Netanyahu,
got
yeah.
mixed up with Putin.
Yeah, no, I know, there's so many names, I mean, it starts.
So Mayo wants to know, I'm having a Neptune Mars transit. Natal Mars 29 degrees of Gemini. I'll get a few direct hits as a retrograde back over that degree. My natal Jupiter lives in 1 degree 17 Sag. What should I be learning from this transit?
Neptune square Mars. Well, see, like in astrology, every question is, or every answer is, it depends, because it depends what you're doing with the Neptune. Neptune, the best thing you can do with Neptune is avoid the things that are not good, like alcohol, intoxicants, escapism. That's Neptune's favorite trick. I don't want to deal with this, so you do that. Now, lesser thing would be just watch a lot of movies, disappear into romance novels, stuff like that. But really, Neptune is the best time to do spiritual practice, because Neptune is on the high level is what it rules, right? So that's the best thing you can do. And then you'd have to look around to see where it fits in the chart. And when Neptune is square, you always warn a person that there might be something around them that isn't what it seems. And so you can get fooled. Neptune is great at conning. That's Trump's use of Neptune. At least the total con artist, presenting one thing when it really means another. So then you see that Neptune in, for example, in relationships can be problematic, because you discover, oh, this person isn't who I thought they were. But then it depends where it is in the chart. That could apply to any number of things, right?
Right.
And realize that changes. It changes next year a bit, but it's a pretty long transit, because it's not going to fully change till 2026, because Neptune moves so slow. It kind of goes back and forth over those degrees for a good between 2 and 3 years, right? So anyway, the bottom line on that one, though, the best thing you can do with Neptune is spiritual work. Meditate, be in the present, and relax yourself and calm yourself, because then you're doing the highest part of the planet, and it'll guide you, to make better choices. It'll make you more aware of what's going on. Yeah.
I've had this asked, and I'm sure you have too. Steph said, there's a Jupiter return in Gemini this month. Will that help 45 in any way?
That's the one that, remember, I think I said earlier, or maybe I didn't, I don't know, but this thing about how astrologers who think he has a good enough chart to win, they point to Jupiter in his sign. And the thing about that is that if you look at what Jupiter's doing, is it's making its way toward his sun, but doesn't quite get there. It makes a station and opposes his moon, because it turns out he has a sun in Gemini, Uranus in Gemini, but the moon is on the other side, right? So for Trump, Jupiter on either the sun or the moon is not the best situation, because it opposes the other one, whichever one it is, right? So I'm calling it as a big problem for winning an election, because it stations directly opposite the moon, right? So now, separately though, when you say, okay, well, does it help him? It does help him some, because Jupiter is really elevated. It's already up there in his Taurus, is his midheaven sign, and going through his planets. It's part of the reason, someone this criminal and this obviously mendacious and awful is getting as far as he's getting, right? So it's keeping him going. And look what he's accomplished. He's got 3 separate trials that are in one way or another completely delayed. So really it's just this other one that we're dealing with. So in some sense it does help, yes. Does it help enough? No. That's my call, that it doesn't help enough. No.
Ryan said, how will Pluto moving into Aquarius later this year create a mood away from the bustle and change to one of more calmness and stability?
Well, remember that Pluto's already in Aquarius now. It's just that
Oh,
it doesn't fully move into it until next year.
okay,
I don't know about stability. My interpretation of Pluto in Aquarius as a long term, because it's going to be in Aquarius till 2043 or something. I think many years, is that Aquarius is not friendly to these fascist types. The Steve Bannons and the Trumps and the Netanyahus even, because
what
Aquarius,
was it at before? Was it Capricorn?
Capricorn, yeah, and Capricorn being a sign of government attracts this kind of behavior. Just like in the 1930s, it was in the opposite sign in Cancer, and the same thing happened. There was all this rise of centralizing the power in an extreme way. Aquarius is not friendly to that. But if you think Pluto goes into Aquarius in January and the world's problems are solved, think again, because that's not going to happen. Even though I'm optimistic overall, I'm not optimistic that quickly. No,
Okay.
that's going to take a while.
Luna says, I'm a Libra Scorpio cusp 1026. My mom was a true Scorpio. My question is, how much does it change a person's characteristics when you're born on a cusp?
I find the whole cusp argument, I don't use it.
Okay.
Wherever you're in, think of it as being literally in a separate country. So now the thing is, though, remember that what ends up happening is that a lot of people, like, for example, you're a Virgo with planets in Libra. So, and you have planets in Leo. So you have planets on either side of your sun, right? So then they color your personality. And lots of people have the same scenario. So then they think, oh, I'm really like the other sign. First, look at those planets before you start saying, on the cusp, I'm so and so. And then when you want to test it, you just look for when planets go right through your sun and then ask yourself, am I really more of the sign or more of the other sign? My experience is that you're the sign that you're born in, even if it's like you're 12 seconds born into that sign. That's who you are.
Okay.
It's like you've moved from Canada to the US or something. You're in a different country.
Hold on. Oh, I just got a hit.
Mm.
I just got a hit. Someone really famous is gonna die. I don't know why. I see the news media talking about, takes a little pressure off Trump's trial. Somebody really famous, but it feels not a young person. Could even be somebody in the media.
Mm.
I don't know why I just got that hit. Okay. Linda and Andre, love watching you both. How is the Saturn return affected if Saturn was retrograde in your natal chart?
Well, see, it's another independence question. The other thing you look at is when the Saturn returns, has it moved into away from retrograde by progression? Because that happens to a lot of people in the course of their life. So then it's a little different because in that sense, the Saturn brings in a new dimension, into your thinking, into the way you're doing things. But basically, if Saturn is retrograde, the whole idea is that with retrogrades, the solution to retrogrades is solve it in your inner life, right? Saturn retrograde is more like, or Saturn direct, I mean, normal Saturn is more likely to look for solutions by going out there, starting businesses, doing things and getting feedback. When it's retrograde, you have to go through the step of the inner world in order for the outer world to succeed. That's the logic. And then when Saturn is returning, that topic becomes way more intense. That's the way Saturn works. Whenever it's in the building, it ramps it up. I just had an experience of it, last week, and it's not a lot of fun. It just
No.
doesn't feel great. Let's just say that.
By the way, no more nosebleeds. So that was some intermittent thing, hopefully.
Yeah.
So this was a good question. Do you see anything happening towards August in Chicago when the convention is here?
On that one, I draw a blank. What do you feel? Do you feel like we're
I'm
going to
not,
get?
maybe that one, but somebody asked me about the Democratic convention and I wasn't feeling nothing. I don't see Armageddon. I don't see a thing like happened when I was young. Remember when Daley had the police shooting everybody?
Yeah, I know. That'd be my call too. Yeah, that it's no.
So Anne asked, how do we work with a new moon and full moon energy? Today is a new moon. She wrote a day ago.
Mhm.
New moon in Taurus, and there's a full moon coming up in Sag. Both significant signs in my chart.
Well, the basic way is to realize a new moon almost always feels flatter, deader energy. At least that's the way I always experience it. It feels low energy, even if it's not like you're crashed and can't work, but it feels low energy. The full moon is the kind of thing where you can't sleep at night type energy. So the new moon, even with the low energy, is always a good time to start something. That's why, for instance, planting, you'll see in those almanacs, you plant on the new moon. But the full moon is better for insight. You get clarity and flashes of understanding something, about your life that you can then use for yourself. And then you have to realize that the full moon, it is true. I believe you said this. I know I've heard nurses say this, that in the hospital, it'll get all wacky and, they'll see strange events and.
Oh, at full moons, we got a lot of bursts. And we usually get a lot of one thing or the other. Sometimes it was a lot of gunshots. Sometimes it was a lot of bursts. Sometimes it's a lot of asthma. It's like clusters.
Clusters. Well, I mean, between the two, I prefer the full moon. If someone offered me a choice, do you want the new moon or the full moon? I would say full moon, even though there are risks to the full moon in that you get, when someone is said to be a lunatic, Luna is moon,
Right.
being a little crazed can be connected to the full moon, especially if you have an eclipse at the same time, which is what Trump had in it. Trump is on a full moon with an eclipse. So then you get really extreme behavior, which means in some way more success, but in some way more failure, more danger. The energy is too strong.
Andre, I was wondering, do you see the weather coming down in the United States anytime soon? Oh, calming down. They said calming down.
The weather?
There are tornadoes, floods, hurricanes. I don't know if you can read that.
Well, I mean,
Predicted that we were going to have, watch out for the hurricanes and the wind. I kept feeling wind and drowning. Terrible weather in Brazil. Did you see that?
I didn't, but that question, I think it's more of a knowledge question. We know that this has been building for years. It's very unlikely to change because the climate has been, altered enough that it's drier. You get, for instance, we never used to get here any forest fires filling the lake with smoke and things like that. And it isn't happening every year, but it's happening every other year, and it can be really bad. So that's likely to continue unless something is discovered that could somehow improve it. I have no idea what that would be. And there's where Pluto and Aquarius is helpful, and so is Uranus and Gemini. But those build starting next year and the year after. The year after is when Uranus switches signs, and Uranus was discovered in that sign back in the 1780 something. That planet is really connected to technology. So whatever you can say about technology really liberated many, many people. And it's going to have to come in with this because I don't see any other solution. If they don't find the technological way to solve it, if you're waiting for countries to stop doing, bad things like coal and things like that, I don't think it'll happen soon enough to solve the climate. So then the odds are that these storms are going to be rougher, and inflict more damage and all of that. That's, to me, pretty basic.
Sometimes when I'm reading a particular person, I will see some unexpected news. And sometimes that tends to be weather related for where they're living. I think that you probably know the story where I was sitting with all those nurses when I was in nursing school going through a surgery thing. And every one of us got the tower. And I remember looking at them saying, well, I guess we're going to have an earthquake or something. I think that next day was the Loma Prieta, the earthquake. And we couldn't go to the school because I had to take the San Mateo Bridge and the Bay Bridge to class. Nobody was going on bridges. So yeah, sometimes the cards will tell you, uh-oh. Sometimes I'll really get a hit, like when I knew the bombing and stuff was gonna happen with Zelensky, I was in a panic. Energetically, I couldn't sleep. I was so overwhelmed. I could see the deaths. It was terrible. But I'm telling you, I always knew he was gonna win, and he's gonna win. But I could feel volcanoes. I can feel, I told everybody the wind, you're gonna be surprised about the wind. And I've lived here 8 years. I've never seen this kind of wind, gusts of wind, 50 miles an hour for no reason at all. There's no clouds in the sky. It's weird.
Huh. So, and you see what with that same idea that it'll
I see, you know, the fires with us, I don't see as bad. I heard Canada had the worst fires ever.
Mm.
I heard Canada was really bad, but I'm not seeing Armageddon fires with us here in California, Oregon. Maybe Oregon's gonna get, I'm so sorry, Oregon.
See, that's the thing though, that
Washington.
if you get fires in Canada, they could affect the US. Fires in British Columbia affect Washington State. Fires in the East Coast that affected New York a while back. It became
I remember that. It was really
like
bad.
Beijing. So it's the problem that this is now so pervasive in so many parts of the world.
I see definite like rains and mudslides. I see huge mudslides.
Mm.
That could even be in other places on Earth. It doesn't mean the United States.
Right. Well,
And even that volcanoes I kept seeing the beginning of the year, you know, Iceland got them, a whole bunch of places got them.
Right.
So we pretty much covered a lot of questions, my friend.
Yeah, I think we've covered it. I mean, I know now that this trial continues with Trump, and at least until next week, it's super intense. I mean, the part that I find most revealing, though, is that the reason I said what I said last week about this week was that the Mars is triggering the very same spot that back in October of 2016 led to all this, situation. Like it goes through this part of the chart, and you just knew, okay, this is going to trigger that type of energy. But I didn't know it was going to be Stormy Daniels. It turned out to be that way. And the thing is that going toward June, he's not free of it, because in the same sign later, it triggers other degrees that are just as complicated. And that's probably going to be when Michael Cohen, or, who knows what other witness they bring up, because this is the part of the trial that is for him most difficult, because the stuff that he, would kill to
Right.
hide.
And I predicted that he was going to do something that the judge was going to, I thought the judge was going to have the jury removed and then lay into Trump. But apparently, he called his counsel over and said he's swearing out loud. He's intimidating the jurors and you need to talk to your, because he's all, boisterous. But I saw that, but I still see where the judge has to ask the jurors, could you please get up and go? And then he lays into them. He might even put him in jail for a few hours. I don't know. Something's going to happen.
Well, from your lips to...
Because, it'll probably be Cohen that sets him up.
It's possible. Yeah, it's possible. And it's...
I love that Stormy Daniels. She fought for herself. Let me tell you something right now.
And, it's curious, too, that you see it's that thing that in astrology you transpose patterns. So just where planets are, you knew this was going to be a problem for this person. It's like a lightning rod, because she's got all this energy in his 8th sign. Not a good place. When someone is there, they can really hurt you, even if at the time it looks
right. And they're like, is it true you called him an orange turd? I would have been busting out laughing if I was a jury. I would have been, hey, girl, give me 5. Shoot.
Yeah, no, and by the way, she was very direct when she was asked, do you hate him? And she said, yes.
Yes. Yes. And also they said, don't you think your life is better? No, it's terrible. He put her through hell.
Yeah, no, of course. There's no question. I mean,
But she was a hustler, and she admits she was a hustler.
Yeah.
So what is she selling stuff? So is he. shoes and I don't know what all.
Yeah.
Steaks.
Well, and and the thing is, none of that matters because what matters is that the charge says you took an event and then you falsified records to alter the election. That's what they're accusing you of. They're
And
saying
that they
you
got
were
that hook, line, and sinker.
exactly. So that it doesn't matter, the rest doesn't matter. Also, Cohen has a great answer. If when they say that he's a liar, he should say, well, every lie was for him. So point to a lie.
I know. And also Cohen ended up doing jail
Exactly. Yeah.
for exactly what Trump did. So there you go.
Yeah. No. So that's probably
All
going to
those
be very.
little pompous Republicans in Congress try to act like you're just nothing but a liar.
That would be, I'm sure it's going to be very uncomfortable. I actually hope, my hope is that Cohen testifies and looks directly at him, because that's what I would do. I would look directly at him and say,
Yeah.
this is what it is. I mean, what are you going to do? Honestly, you're going to tell your people, that they should come and kill me and all that. Sure, I know, but there are risks when you talk. I mean, his people talk a lot. They do. They talk a lot. They make
Cohen
threats.
was a big bully. He was a big, pompous wannabe.
Oh yeah,
And-
yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
But
Yeah,
he admits it. He admits it.
No, and that's right. He should admit it, and he should for sure. But the argument they make about how he's such a liar, it's not a solid argument because his lies, there were things like when he went into Congress, he said they asked him about that tower in Russia, and he said once instead of 3 times, things like that. They're not even close to the types of lies that Trump, traffics in. I mean, Trump
I'm
is
sure
just,
his memory serves him well now.
yeah, there you go. Yeah, exactly.
But he was furious. They're going to say he was mad at Trump for not putting him in the administration. And he'll say, yeah, I was furious about that. After I, took a mortgage out and everything for him.
Yeah,
But-
no, I mean, it depends how, a lot of these things, it depends how clever he is in explaining, because really the whole point is like, why did you change and become his enemy? And, I would just say, well, how do you know when you change in life? You can go along doing something wrong, and then one day you realize this is not a good thing. This is not good. I could tell, when they were charging me, it was my come to Jesus moment. I realized I'm breaking the law. I'm helping a lawbreaker, and I don't want to do it anymore. That's what America's supposed to be. America's supposed to be redeem yourself, change your bad patterns. So I did. Not complicated, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's like how Stormy Daniels next will be a school teacher or whatever. Okay. I don't know. I don't know what she'll do.
So funny.
All right. Fun as always. So we'll reconvene again soon, and bye everyone.
Bye.